little bit of a got me quite enough. Hopefully it is now in focus and we can make a start. So, was gold mining important for Manifest Destiny? 100%. It got people to move from the east to the west. Over in the west, California, over here, there's nothing there. If we're going to achieve Manifest Destiny, we need to get people on the land. And the discovery of gold in California was a great thing for Manifest Destiny. It encouraged the mass migration of hundreds of thousands of people to settle the land. So, when did they discover gold? Yes, there it is. 1848 was the discovery of gold by a man called James Marshall. I'd just be writing down some keywords if I were you. So 1848 gold, James Marshall. He was building Sutter's Fort, but that's just extra stuff. You don't actually need to know that. So discovered gold in the middle of nowhere. It's 1848 and James Marshall is meant to keep it a secret. He gets drunk and he tells one or two people, lets the cat out of the bag, and everybody descends upon California. By the end of the first year, by the end of 1848, how many people had moved to California? Not yet. The first one. 10,000. There it is. 10,000 people, mostly men, digging for gold by the end of 1848. That's a great thing from a government point of view, isn't it? Like, you want to achieve Manifest Destiny, and by the end of 1848, in the beginning of 1848, there's hardly anybody in California. Bears and Indians. Maybe the odd mountain man. Okay, by the end of 1848, we've got 10,000 people there. They are building communities, mining camps. You don't need to write all this down, we'll get onto this bit in a minute. But sometimes mining camps develop into towns and then later into cities. That's Manifest Destiny in action, isn't it? Okay, so by the end of 1848, we've got 10,000 men. What happens in 1849? It's the beginning of the what? Gold rush, absolutely. It doesn't actually say it here, but you might want to point out that 1849 was the gold rush. This is when huge numbers of people started to pour into California, trying to strike it rich. So 1848, discovery of gold, 10,000 people in California. 1849, word gets out, the rush is on. Just Americans? Everybody from around the world. You've got Europeans, you've got Russians, you've got the Chinese. Everybody is going over to America because there is money to be made. You just have to pick it out of the stream. That's what people believed. That's what the rumors said, that everybody could just get rich. Was that true? Did many people actually get rich? Not really. The merchants did, and we'll get onto that bit in a minute. Okay. So, what can I move off of this? So, what was it like for the miners? And we're going to use this picture. I really like this picture because, to begin with, it looks like it's not actually telling you much. But when you look a little bit closer, there's a lot of information in that picture about the life of a miner. Get better? Okay. Using that source there, I'd like you to bullet point some aspects of the life of a gold miner. Let me give it to you in a GCSE format. What does source A suggest about the life of a gold miner? There's source A. What does it tell you about the life of a gold miner? To begin with, is it easy or hard? It's hard, so now you need to pull out the detail that backs up that statement. Source A shows me that the life of a gold miner was extremely difficult. Why? What there tells you that the life of a gold miner was difficult? Come on, somebody say something so we can move on. Yes, go on. What makes you say the hygiene was bad? It's a mountain river, but yes, I understand what you're saying. There's very little sanitation now, so it could be issues with mental health. Good. What else? No women. Yeah, it's boring. If you look closely at that, there's lots of men. And okay, that doesn't necessarily make your life hard, but it just adds to the misery of being a gold miner, a bit like the mountain men. They were very lonely. A hand went up over there. Yes, absolutely. The fact that he is stood in a mountain stream, he's going to be extremely cold. He's got a pan in his hand. How is he actually trying to find the gold? He's panning for it, isn't he? He's bending over, he's scooping up all the gravel from the bottom of the riverbed, and then he's panning it, shaking it from side to side, trying to show the gold. That is physical. It's really hard. What else? Tense. Good. You're writing all this down, right? You're making some notes. So yes, their conditions. They were up in the mountains, cold, miserable existence, and they're living in tents. Looking at the man here, and you've got to look closely, what has he got which suggests that there is not necessarily much personal hygiene? Yes. His beard is so long, it looks like he has been up there for a decent amount of time, that he hasn't had access to a warm shower or a shave in a number of months. He could just be growing it for fashion, but it does suggest to me that it's a hard life up in the mountains. Happy with that? Pretty straightforward, isn't it? So if you ever get a question about the life of a gold miner, how dangerous and difficult it was, well, that's some of the information that you can use. You can also, as you're doing, doesn't it, when you get stuff out and then you put it somewhere and then you can't find it. Now, my group, you got these, you glued them into your book. How much of them you read, I am not sure, but hopefully you did read through them. Mrs. Green's group, if you don't have these and you would like them, then I will photocopy them straight away for you, okay? Maybe not today, but tomorrow you just got to come and see me and I will get you these handouts. But what this does, we were watching a video all about gold mining, and I'd taken some notes from the video and I asked you just to add to them if anything cropped up that you found interesting. But mostly, this is everything you need to know about the life of a gold miner. And much of it we've already touched on using that source a second ago. Gold was found in rivers, used panning to find it to begin with. It was very hard work. It was either too dry or too cold. Miserable work, poor food, fevers, work up in the mountains. What were they looking for? The mother lode. The load of gold, which is going to enable them to retire, to become rich. They staked a claim. They went up into the staked a claim. This is my area. What's one of the worst crimes you could commit in the goldfields? Yeah, what's it called? Claim jumping, is that what you're going to say? Yeah, good. Claim jumping, there it is there. One of the worst things that you could do in the goldfields, because everybody's there to get rich. And if you steal somebody's claim, that is not going to go down well. Was there much any law and order in the goldfields? No, because people got there first before law and order could catch up. So you're literally building a community in the middle of nowhere. There is no police force that's going to police the area. It's up to you miners, all of you lot here, to come up with your own rules and your own laws. So it's not here, and we're going to look at it in a second, but mining courts appeared throughout the gold fields. It was the miners' way of trying to deal with criminals. And if you were ever convicted as being a claim jumper, they could sentence you to death. It was their own rules, and they looked down upon claim jumpers. It was up there with murder. So, local Indians were killed, mentioned that they were driven out. Most did not get rich. It's really important that you, when you're writing about gold mining, you point out that most miners did not get rich. Yes, they helped to achieve manifest destiny. They did that as a byproduct. They didn't actually know they were doing that. They went there to get rich, but most people didn't, because most of the easy gold had gone. By the end of 49, most of the easy gold, just picking it out of the streams, the miners suffered. They became poor. They looked for work. And this is when the big mining companies moved in. So just down there, let me move this one up a little bit. It says down here, the easy gold was soon gone, and the mining companies moved in and used big, like, hydraulic hoses to blast away the hillsides They had hard rock mining where they they mined underground. And they were only able to do this was because they were big companies, they had lots of money. So most of the miners ended up dirt poor and being employed by the mining companies to work as miners. Who did get rich? And then sold it to the miners, absolutely. The merchants, you're right when the people were saying that. And the rich people were the merchants who charged huge prices for food and tools. If you hear rumours of how easy the miners have it, how much gold they're finding, and that's what the rumours were, that it was just easy money, there for the takings. Well, if they're making all this money, then it makes sense that they can pay maybe an extra $1 for a sack of potatoes, or for paper to write home on, or anything really. So the people that made a living off of the miners were usually the people that made a decent living, a decent amount of money. The miners themselves got taken advantage of. There was every opportunity for them to spend or lose their money. And we're going to have a look at mining towns in a minute. Because mining towns were exciting places, weren't they? Yeah, what could you do in a mining town? Anything. Good. What else? Good. Go on, give me some examples. Gamble. 24-hour gambling. Fighting, yes, much more so. If you're that sort of person, then there was lots of action, lots of fights going on in mining towns, and that was exciting in itself. What else? Drinking. 24-hour drinking, 24-hour gambling, 24-hour prostitution. These were, is that what you said? You should have said it. These were exciting places to be. They were, yeah, mining towns were exciting places to be. You could do stuff in mining towns that you could not do back in the East. So people did move to mining towns for gold, because that's the nature of why they were there, to strike it rich. But also some people moved there for the excitement that the mining towns had to offer. You couldn't gamble all the time back in the East. There were probably very few places to gamble back in the East. Drinking, you're allowed to drink, but not on the same level as a mining town. It was one non-stop party, and it was exciting, and people moved west for that excitement. Why is that good? That's good for what? Manifest destiny. Excellent. So we've done gold mining. Let's have a quick look at mining towns. Okay. Now you've got to be able to talk. You talked about people moving to California. 100,000 people by the end of the gold rush. 10,000 in 48, and by the end of 49, it was 100,000 people had moved to California. I think I forgot to mention that a moment ago. That is brilliant for Manifest Destiny. But if it wasn't for the mining towns, many of those miners would end up going home. It was the mining towns that kept them in that area and forced them to build communities that then went on to help to achieve Manifest Destiny. This idea that it is their God-given right to develop the land. Well, mining towns help them to develop the land. So a few things from this which are worth noting down. Some, not all, some towns grew fast. San Francisco is a city today. I don't know if there are 1 million people living in there. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, yeah, there's 1 million people living in San Francisco today. To begin with, that started off as a mining camp with about 50 men. It then grew into a town. And once you have a town, are people attracted for other things other than gold? Yes, absolutely. And I always like to think that towns grow into cities. People are attracted for new opportunities to make money. To begin with, people are moving just for gold. But some of these camps grow into towns and then cities. And then people are moving not just for the gold, but for new opportunities to make money. And that's good, right? Because if it's just gold, eventually the gold's going to run out and people are going to stop going. Would you agree? So that's why towns and cities are important, because once all the gold is gone, those towns and then cities are fully established. They're not going anywhere. Okay, people are moving to those places for new opportunities. So the fact that some camps grew into towns and then grew into cities was very, very important for Manifest Destiny. Without that development, the discovery of gold simply would have not have had the same impact on Manifest Destiny, helping to achieve it. We've already mentioned some of the things here. Mining towns, you highlighted the fact that they were living in tents. When the tents developed into simple wooden shacks, it was a miserable existence. Disease was a problem. You mentioned that a moment ago using that source. Cholera was a big issue. Dirty water. And because most miners never planned on staying, these places developed vices that you would never get back home. It's like, oh, I'm here for a small amount of time, so I'm literally going to just cut loose and go wild. And we mentioned the fact that you could drink 24 hours a day. Saloons were everywhere. Gambling was everywhere. Prostitution was everywhere. All of these opportunities for the hardworking miners to be parted from their gold. You could cash in your gold, go into a saloon and spend it drinking. You could then go into a gambling house. Most saloons had gambling areas. So you're getting drunk and you got all your money on you. Is it easier to spend your money when you're drunk? Yeah. You're teenagers, you shouldn't know that. But absolutely it is. It's not like real money. When you're drunk, it's not like real money. A fruit machine, there you go, I'll just put in another tenner, just trying to win the jackpot. Yes. Yes, memories, bad memories. And then it's all gone. And you wake up in the morning thinking, bloody hell, what did I do? But at the time, because you're drunk, you're not actually thinking about it. It's not real. So, yes, that was very much the case in the American West, in these gold towns. They were exciting, and there were lots of opportunities for the gold miners to lose and be parted from their money. And that adds to this idea that the gold miners never really got rich. The people that made a living off of the gold miners got rich. The people that owned the saloons, the people that run the gambling tables, the prostitutes to a certain degree, those were the people that were making money. Also, gold attracted criminals, which added to the wild nature of these towns. These towns were very, very dangerous. What's the big problem with you drinking lots and everybody carrying guns? Murder, absolutely. Violence in these gold towns was a real issue because there were very few laws. Well, there were laws, but people just got drunk and problems came from that. I put there that there were no real laws. That was highlighted in the program that we watched. There weren't any real laws. The American version of Law and Order simply hadn't caught up. All of these people moved to California and they built communities in the middle of nowhere. And the police, simply the marshals, the sheriffs, simply were not there. So it was up to the miners to come up with laws which suited their way of life. And they did write their own rules, their own laws, and they enforced them in minor courts. Very important, okay, that you write that down. Mining courts are an important part of these towns. And yes, they started off as a good thing. It's just a group of people trying to get a control of law and order. Yet, what were the issues with minor courts? Were they fair? No. They definitely weren't fair. And who did they target more than others? Foreigners, yeah, absolutely. The Chinese were hit hard by the mining courts. There was a foreign miners' tax. Sometimes people were tried in a court of law and sentenced to death, even though they don't speak English. And they couldn't even follow what was going on in the court. So although mining courts were definitely understandable, they were important in trying to get control of these wild areas, they weren't necessarily a fair system of justice. But it's important, isn't it? Because without the mining courts, what happens to the towns? They become a mess, they become wild, and nobody wants to move there. If we're going to properly achieve communities and manifest destiny, who do we need to move to the mining towns? Women and families. If they are lawless places, is anybody going to take their family there? I wouldn't. No, not my children. I might take myself because it seems very exciting, but I'm going to leave the girlfriend and the children behind. So women and families were so important in this story of manifest destiny. Everything gets linked back to developing the West. Without the women, the mining towns simply would have disappeared. Once all the gold had gone, the men's going to go home, aren't they? They're not going to hang around. Why would they? All the excitement is gone, the gold's gone, the money's gone. I'm going to go back to my wife and my children or the town that I'm from and try and get a wife. So women were very important. The fact that they showed up enabled the towns to develop a sense of community. So women were brave, spirited, and they brought stability by organizing things like schools and churches. Those are examples of what brings about a sense of community. If you have children there and there are schools and your children are going to those schools in that mining town, then it gives you a sense of wanting to stay. If your church is there, it gives you a sense of feeling, I suppose, a sense of belonging, and you want to stay. If you consider an area your home, are you going to work hard to protect it? Yeah, absolutely, because it's yours. It's where you live. You want it to develop. You want it to become more civilized. And that's what women did. They brought a sense of stability and they civilized the towns. It gave the men a reason to want to stay. Okay, because I go there and I fall in love. And then all of a sudden I've got a wife in this mining town. We have children and we've got a family here. And this now feels like our home. We want to stay, so we want to develop it. We build and churches, community that make more people want to stay. And this is the important bit for Manifest Destiny. This is the towns, the camps rather, developing in such a way that they stay, that they don't disappear. And when they stay, they continue to develop. More people then move to the area, further developing them. They change from towns into cities, and yeah, that's the story. Story of development. Does that make sense? And again, Mrs. Green's group, I've got these. I've got more than that. I haven't got enough to give out this lesson, but I could easily photocopy more tomorrow. You've just got to come and ask, say, sir, have you got those mining towns and gold mining sheets? And I'll give them to you, and then you can use them. Everything is here that you need to know about the gold miners, and you've just got to make your own links back to Manifest Destiny. Any questions? When was the gold rush? 1849. They discovered gold 48 and the gold rush is 49. How many people in California by the end of the gold rush? 100,000. Good. All helping to achieve Manifest Destiny. Right, Mormons. So far we've had the trailblazers. They were important in the development of the West, right? Yes. And we've also had the gold miners, and we just spoke about why they were important in the development of the West. And now one of the last groups of early settlers before the Civil War was the Mormons. No, that's Joseph Smith. But he's not ugly for the time. If you think about the mountain man, that rough, rugged look, who is constantly dirty and probably really smells, he looks really quite clean cut, doesn't he? Not that I'd like to date him or anything, but anyway. That was Joseph Smith. And this is a whistle-stop tour of the Mormons. You've got the detail in your book, but just by talking over it now should help you to understand more of it when it comes to revision. And I would definitely be revising this for your mocks. The Mormon story comes in 3 parts. You've got the Joseph Smith part, you've got the Brigham Young part, and then you've got the last little bit where there was nearly a war between the government and the Mormon army. So, who founded the Mormon religion? Joseph Smith. Write it down. Now, I'm just going to, and I said this to my group when we were doing it in class, I would just write down key words. If it was me and I want to retell the Joseph Smith story, all I would write down is Joseph Smith, vision, angel, Moroni, golden plates, translated, Book of Mormon. And that's what happened, wasn't it? You have, sorry, I keep having to adjust this so it is recording in a good way. So In 1823, Smith has a vision. An angel called Moroni appears to him and tells him to dig up some golden plates, which he does, apparently. And he's able to translate the golden plates into a New Testament of the Bible. It's the Book of Mormon. They are Christians. Okay, the Mormons are Christians. They just practice Christianity in a very different way to the Mormons. So Joseph Smith had a vision one day. An angel appeared to him and told him that the Protestants and the Catholics were all doing it wrong. And if he went out and dug up these golden plates, he'd be able to translate them into a new Bible, which told the correct story of Jesus Christ and Christianity. I think, and I'm not sure, and I told my group this, I think according to the Mormons, the Garden of Eden is in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure, I do need to look into that, but they do believe that Jesus basically founded America. He took the tribes of Israel with him to America. They warred with each other until only one tribe was left. God got angry with that tribe and turned their skin red. And that's where Native Americans come from, according to the Mormons. They're originally white people from Jerusalem, and they were taken to America by Jesus to start a new life. And they fought and warred with each other until there was only one tribe left. And God got very angry with that tribe and turned their skin red. Red Indians, Native American Indians. So, we're going to have a quick look now. It's so much based upon their religion. It's that box there. Okay, one of the reasons why everybody remembers of why the Mormons were hated is because of polygamy. You must be able to explain that and point out that every other white person in America was a Christian who believed in a traditional version of Christianity that you take one wife to love and honor until death do you part. You don't take multiple wives. That's just wrong in the Christian world. So how dare these Mormons practice Christianity the wrong way? So they're hated because of polygamy. Also, because of polygamy, what happened to their numbers? Expanded quickly. And wherever they went, people always felt like they were being overrun by Mormons. And one of the reasons why they're overrun is because of polygamy. Another reason, just above that, another reason why people felt like they are being overrun by the Mormons, wherever the Mormons tried to settle, was because they believed, the Mormons believed, that it was their duty, their religious duty, to convert as many people to Mormonism as possible. I always use the example of the Jehovah's Witnesses, because part of their religion is a belief that they need to convert as many people to their religion as possible. And they go around communities and they knock on doors and they want to speak to you all about God and their religion, and basically are trying to convert you to their way of thinking. Is that ever really accepted well? Like when they knock on your doors, most people say, no, thank you, and they close the door. They don't want to hear about it. They don't want to have somebody else's religion thrusted upon them. So wherever the Mormons went, one, they converted people, and that meant their numbers increased. But two, people simply didn't like being told that their version of Christianity was wrong. Because everybody was religious back then. If you're white in America, you followed Christian values. And here are a group of people actually saying that, no, you're doing everything wrong. People didn't like that. And as a result, the Mormons were persecuted. What was the Mormon attitude towards blacks, Indians, and women? Yeah, absolutely. Everybody is equal. Women are equal to men, so women should have the right to vote. Blacks are equal to whites, and Indians are equal to everybody else, because everybody is God's children. This is at a time when America was still practicing what? Slavery. So there were plenty of people in America that did not like the Mormon attitude towards the Indians, blacks, and even women. Because black men got the right to vote before white women, didn't they? What amendment? 15th Amendment granted black male suffrage. So yeah, sorry ladies, you simply could not have been trusted with something as important as the right to vote. That is what they believed. They truly believed that you couldn't be trusted with something as important as a vote, because you might like vote the wrong way. And there are lots of you in society, aren't there? There's lots of women. Imagine if they all voted together. They might just vote wrong. Okay, and There are lots of other reasons why the Mormons were hated, but one last one that you might want to make a note of is that the Mormon church, especially people like Joseph Smith and Brigham Young, they made and had a lot of control over people's lives, over the way they lived their lives. And there was a fear because Smith wanted to become what? Yeah, by the time he was in Nauvoo, in Illinois, Smith was speaking quite passionately about becoming president one day. And because of the control that Smith had over the Mormons' everyday lives, there was a real worry that if Smith ever did become president, then he could force his greater population. So the Mormons were hated. 7 more minutes. I'm going to move off of this in a minute, and hopefully what we're going to aim for this lesson is to finish part 1 of the Mormons. That's the Joseph Smith story. We've still got the Brigham Young bit and the war between the government and the Mormons to do. We'll do that next week, and then we'll be moving on to the Civil War. Okay, this is an after-school revision. We're going to do it in order that we learned it. I think it'll be easier to remember it that way. Although you are revising in class as well, aren't you? I know my group, we've gone over the Civil War today. At least one group did. And Mrs. Green's group, I think you're already on to conflict and tension, aren't you? We're doing the yeah, so I'm not using them at the moment because I want to go over the whole stories, but I will use those 8-3 knowledge organisers with you. So, why were they hated? Not hated. Where did they try to settle? So the first place they tried to settle was Kirtland in Ohio. Kirtland, Ohio. And we already know they were hated, so they're not going to last long. So you need to be able to tell a basic story of what happened to the Mormons in Kirtland. You are never going to get a specific question that asks you, what happened to the Mormons in Kirtland? Okay, you won't ever get something like that. You might get a question that asks you about why they were hated or persecuted, or why they moved to the Great Salt Lake. And this is the sort of information you'd be able to use to answer a bigger question like that. So, Kirtland. They moved there in 1831. By 33, they were building a temple, and Smith set up a bank. The bank is the significant thing in Kirtland. They move there, they build a temple, and Smith sets up a bank for Mormons and non-Mormons. But the success does not last long. Quite quickly, the people of Kirtland feel like they're being overrun by the Mormons. John? Well done, yeah, Gentiles. Do they like being labelled like that? It's like the Mormons saying, we're God's chosen children, and everybody else, well, you're just Gentiles. So again, that didn't go down well. So the people of Kirtland felt like they were being overrun by Mormons. Why? Because of polygamy, because of the fact that the Mormons tried to convert others, but also, what are they trying to do here? They're trying to build their city of God, their holy city. Once they start building their holy city, it's like, yes, this is where the homeland of the Mormons. What happens to Mormons living in other places? They move, they're attracted to this one area. So as soon as they start to build their communities, lots of Mormons from around America are drawn to this new city, this new area. And quite understandably, the people that already live there feel like they're being overrun. And as a result, Mormons' homes were attacked, businesses were attacked, and even Mormons were attacked. One of the favorite punishments for the Mormons was to be tarred and feathered. To make you stand out as a Mormon. Everywhere you went, people would know that you were a Mormon. It was a way of trying to humiliate you, trying to embarrass you, in the hope that you will do what? Leave, pack up, and go home. I say go home, go back to wherever you came from. So yes, the Mormons were not particularly liked. And then the final nail in the coffin was the bank. By 1837, there was a massive financial crash in America, and the Mormon bank collapsed. Not literally fell down, it was still standing, just so we can be clear about that. The business collapsed. And Mormons and everything. Who got the blame? Joseph Smith, the Mormons, and as a result, they were forced out of Kirtland. So they had to find a new home, somewhere else to move to. They're not wanted in Kirtland, so they moved to Missouri. Well done. How long did they last in Missouri? 1 year, that is it. And again, that's a sign of how much the Mormons are disliked. So, Missouri, a new home. It was a new home for 1 year, from 1837 through to 1838. And what was the main issue in Missouri? Expansion, numbers expanding rapidly. The Mormons have already got a bit of a negative reputation, and then they move to your area, and within a year they seem to be everywhere. Their numbers are increasing so fast. It's not going to go down well with the local people, and it didn't. Did the Mormons try to integrate into society? What, did they try to associate with everybody else? No, that's the thing. They lived their own little communal way of life. They shared everything. They made sure the Mormons were successful, and they didn't ever really get involved with anybody else. Is that ever going to make them feel welcomed? No, you need to make an effort to integrate with the people who are already there, not look down upon them, which the Mormons sometimes did. What did the Mormons think about gambling and drinking? It was really wrong. And it is wrong in Christianity. The Christian settlers shouldn't have been doing it anyway, but they did. They drank a little bit, they gambled, but they still believed in God. To the Mormons, that was a big sin and a big no-no. So as a result, they never really integrated into society, and they were driven out of Missouri. And the leaders were actually arrested, and it was Brigham Young that took them to Nauvoo. Smith later joined in. It wasn't long before. So that's Missouri. Let's do the last one, and then I'll send you home. So I'm trying to get it right on the screen here. So the final part of the Joseph Smith story, this is what leads on to Smith's murder, is where he moves them next. And I say Smith was in prison when the Mormons actually moved to Illinois. He didn't spend long in the prison, and he later joined them. What is significant about this? Well, to begin with, they were given permission to move to Illinois. The governor actually invited them there. I don't know why, if I'm being totally honest. I'm assuming, and I'm guessing, that it was probably for tax reasons. Like, there are lots of Mormons, and if they all move to your state, then you can tax them the same way you tax everybody else, and that makes your government there rich, much richer than it currently is. There might have been other reasons, I don't know. But they were given them permission to move there. They were allowed to build a holy city, and they were allowed their own laws and their own army. The holy city is called Nauvoo, by the way. It didn't exist in Illinois before the Mormons got there. So they were invited to build their holy city. They were allowed their own laws and their own army. If we live in Bridgewater and we get a religious group coming over, let's say over the fields there, they build a city and they're allowed their own laws, are we going to like that? Are we going to feel like it's fair? No, definitely not. Somebody say gypsies. Yeah, I know what you're saying with communities, they kind of have their own laws and whatnot. But the nature of being a gypsy means that you travel around a lot, hence the name travelers. So chances are they wouldn't have settled in one place and their numbers wouldn't increase as fast as the Mormon numbers. So we've got them in Nauvoo. They've got their own laws and they've got their own army. Numbers increase rapidly, just like everywhere else, because of things like polygamy. On top of them being allowed their own law and their own army, we've got numbers down there. Their army numbered 2,000 people. Would you be worried if the local church down the road had an army of 2,000 men? Yeah. Do you remember what the army was called? The Danites. Okay. And lastly, when they were established in Nauvoo, Smith was talking quite extensively about one day running for president. All of this combined to create a perfect situation where the Mormons simply were not wanted in Nauvoo anymore. We got one more bit to do. It's going to take 1 minute, okay? So just hold tight for a second. I know some of you are itching to leave. So all of this created a situation where the Mormons simply were no longer welcome in Illinois. And in the end, Smith and some other leaders were arrested. They had encouraged their followers to smash up a printing press that was printing anti-Mormon propaganda. And as a result of that, Smith was arrested. And whilst he was in prison, the mob formed. They stormed the prison, they dragged Smith out and his brother, and they killed both of them. And potentially, that could have meant the end for the Mormon religion. They are in crisis. They are hated in the East. It's been proven in Kirkland, Missouri, and now in Nauvoo, they're hated. And now they're leaderless. Would it have been easy for the Mormon religion to collapse after this? Yes. But it didn't, because of one man, Brigham Young. And we'll do Brigham Young next week. Really, really well done. Keep coming. I know it's a pain in the backside, but we will go over the whole of the American West, and then the whole of conflict and tension, and then the whole of medicine.